Now, picking up with the aquatic biomes, these are usually found, um, or the aquatic biomes, I'm sorry, are classified as either freshwater, which are the inland bodies of water, or saltwater, which would be, of course, your oceans and your seas. We also have brackish water, where it combines, where the rivers run into the oceans and you've got the fresh water combining with the salt water. That water is considered brackish. Wetlands are areas that are wet at least part of the year. So we're talking about marshes that can continually have water in them, swamps, got a lot of woody plants and shrubs in swamps, and bogs where the water is very acidic and you have these peat deposits and the sphagnum moss. Now, if we look at our lakes, these are bodies of water classified by how the nutrient status. They can be oligotrophic if they are very low in productivity because their nutrients are so poor, or eutrophic where they have high productivity because they have a lot of nutrients. You're also going to have where the lake stratifies or layers in the summer and winter in different, and we'll look at that in just a second. But at the top you can see this oligotrophic lake, low productivity, but look down there at the eutrophic lake. You've got all that algae and stuff that's blooming there because it's high in nutrients. This is the stratification. You can see the surface. If we start up here at the summer, you've got these areas, these stratified layers, an epilimnion, limnion, which is from 24 to 25 degrees Celsius. Then you have the thermocline below that, that's 13 to 15 degrees, and the hypolimnion, which is underneath that, that's 5 to 8 degrees. So you see three distinct layers of temperature. In the fall, it overturns. And so in the winter, at the top, you've got 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, and then most of the lake is going to be 4 degrees down here. But if you look at the spring, it overturns again, and you go back to the summer with the distinct stratification or layers in the lake. Now, as far as aquatic life goes, got plankton. This is very important in both freshwater and saltwater. Phytoplankton is photosynthetic algae, can make its own food. And zooplankton, this is the animals that eat the phytoplankton. The life zones, you have a littoral zone that's close to the shore. Then you have a limnetic zone where it receives sun. A profundal zone beneath that where it doesn't get any sun. And then the benthic zone down on the bottom where the soil and the water meet or interface. So you can see here, here's the benthic where the soil and the water meet. And then the profundal is right there on the bottom. Above that's the limnetic where it gets light. And then the littoral is close to the shore. On the coast, we have estuaries that are partially enclosed body of water where you have that brackish water, that mix of salt water and fresh water. And the organisms that live there have to be able to tolerate that the amount of salt or the salinity changes. However, these are called the nursery of the sea because 2/3 of all marine fish and shellfish go to estuaries to lay their eggs and raise their young. It's very nutrient rich. You can see here a mud flat at the top is a coastal ecosystem. The rocky shore in the middle, the mangrove swamp in the middle where the roots of the trees are out of the ground. That is another one you find on the coast, and then the rocky shore at the bottom is found on the coast. Now our seashores You got the littoral zone between the high and low water marks because we're dealing with the tide here and the waves. So on the rocky shores, you're going to have a lot of organisms that stay attached, and they've got to be able to tolerate the wave action. But we can divide the littoral zone of that rocky beach into subzones. There's the sandy beach. You don't have any attachment sites. It's sand. So anything that lives there is going to have to live underground. Then you have the euphotic zone, the true light zone, where you have more organisms there than in the rest of the sea because they're getting a lot of light. And then you have coral reefs that are just below the surface in the areas that have warm tropical waters, and they have a lot of life there as well. So you can see, if we look at this ocean ecosystem here, that you're dealing with, here's the shore, and you've got this euphotic zone here, and then it's going to be right at the top. And you see how the tide is changing a little bit. And then, of course, when we get to the deep areas, that's not a lot of light's going to penetrate. So you're going to have more life up in here. Now, pelagic zone is what we call the open sea. And you've got epipelagic zone, which is above the pelagic zone. It doesn't get a lot of nutrients, and so it doesn't have much phytoplankton. The mesopelagic, that's where it gets a lot of sun penetration and a lot of nutrients are there, so you're going to have a lot of organisms living there, and coral reefs are in the mesopelagic zone. And then you got the bathypelagic zone, which is complete darkness unless they are bioluminescent organisms. And you're going to have carnivores and scavengers down there. The abysmal plain, that is deep, high pressure, extreme cold. The only way anything gets fed down there is because stuff sinks down from above. You have hydrothermal vents where you've got cracks that seawater percolates through, and it gets heated to about 350 degrees. And a lot of food chains start down there in the hydrothermal vents. And to tie this up, looking at the ocean currents, the major ocean currents move heat from the equator to the cooler parts of the biosphere. And some of the major currents, the Gulf Stream is the one we hear about. It warms the east coast of North America and parts of Western Europe. There's another current in the southern hemisphere that warms the east coast of South America. Then you've got the Humboldt current that's in the southern hemisphere that carries the water northward. And part of that is the El Nino southern oscillation that we hear about, where cold water from the west coast of South America is going to subside.